In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, family, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we color conversations on the canvas of America. Tonight, I want to start off like I've done the other shows here at the beginning of February. We're going to start with a Black history reflection. Tonight, we will reflect on John Lewis. John Lewis taught us that courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to stand anyway. Born in Troy, Alabama, shaped by the moral fire of the civil rights movement, Lewis became the embodiment of good trouble, a phrase that continues to echo across generations. He faced billy clubs on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, yet never surrendered his belief in the transformative power of love, justice, and disciplined nonviolence. His life reminds us that leadership is not about titles. It's about sacrifice. It's about choosing to fight for people who may never know your name. As we honor his legacy, we remember that progress is not inevitable, it is intentional. And tonight, as we welcome a leader who has spent his life fighting for equity, dignity, and opportunity for young people, we stand firmly in the lineage of John Lewis' call to action. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble. So as we go into the show, I want to say again, good evening, family, and welcome to another powerful episode of America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King, and tonight we continue our mission of elevating voices, telling the truth, and shining a light on the leaders who are shaping our communities from the inside out. We're living in a moment where education, equity, and leadership are not just topics, they are battlegrounds. Our children are navigating a system that were not built for them, and our educators are carrying burdens that too often go unseen. But every now and then, someone steps into the arena with clarity, conviction, and a commitment to transformation that cannot be ignored. Tonight's guest is one of those leaders. Dr. Malcolm Jones II is a force, a nationally recognized educator, consultant, former Division I athlete, and a man who has turned lived experiences into leadership, data into direction, and adversity into purpose. From the football field to the principal's office, from district leadership to entrepreneurship, he has dedicated his life to ensuring that students, especially Black students, are seen, supported, and set up to succeed. This conversation is about truth, it's about accountability, it's about the future of our schools, our athletes, and our communities. So settle in, because tonight we're going deep. Welcome Dr. Malcolm Jones II to the show, please. Hello, Dr. Jones.
Hello, how you doing, Mr. King?
I'm doing just excellent. So being here.
I couldn't hear you.
I said, thanks for being here.
Oh, not a problem. My pleasure.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we jump into the show?
No, hey, let's jump right into it.
All righty. So what we'll do first is I'd like to get a start where the audience get to know you a little bit better. And we'll start where we'll get to know you from how things were before you got to be this great leader that you are today. Can you tell us about growing up in Jackson, Mississippi? What experiences shaped your understanding of discipline, resilience, and leadership?
The first experience that shaped me was the background and foundation that my parents gave me. There was a certain expectation in the house for your behavior as well as your performance in school. So that's what shaped me a lot. Also, when I was growing up, your teachers as well as your coaches, a lot of times they help. What shall I say? Reinforce what was being taught at home. You know, a lot of times the parents as well as the school were on the same page. So I had a great life, great upbringing. I'm thankful for my parents for the structure and discipline they gave me. At the time, I really didn't care for it, but it paid off. That's where I started in Jackson, Mississippi.
So, how did your upbringing influence the educator and leader you eventually became?
Well, my dad always my dad and my mom really valued education, and they always preached that if you get your education, it's not anything that you can't do. Uh, any door can be open with that education. When I got into education, I did not plan on being an educator. My dad was a teacher for 30 years, and anytime I asked my dad for money, he never had any money. So I was telling myself, I don't want to be an educator because clearly my dad doesn't make any money. So I don't want to follow that path. But I got into education. I began coaching. And once I began coaching and seeing the need that was there for mentorship and guidance of the just not only the young men, but the young women, it really sucked me in and really engaged me, and it became my calling.
Mm. So, when you first got into education, and that's from either your coaching and your teaching experience, what were some of the things that you were seeing with your students that led you to believe that they needed the leadership that you could provide?
Well, a lot of them lacked confidence, discipline, and they didn't value education, and they didn't see the importance of education. And a lot, I was a college football player, so the selling point for me for getting into education was to coach originally. And once you delve in and you see what's going on with kids, I can remember one of the first grade checks that I did with one of my teams. My first year, I look at the report cards, and you had kids that had D's and F's and C's, and for them it was acceptable. So I knew there was a need for me to show them the value of an education and show that they could live a better life than the environment that they were currently in.
So, what role did sports play in your development as a young Black man navigating the South?
Man, hey, what a question. So I began playing football when I was about organized football when I was about 9 years old. And one of the requirements for me to play was that I didn't make any C's, D's, or F's. Before that time, you talk about first through third grade, I can remember I had some D's and F's on my report card, and I really didn't value education. And the deal that my parents made with me was that as long as you take care of your business in the classroom and you eliminate these low marks, you can play. So that was a selling point for me. So once I started to pay attention and put in effort, my grades improved, and I was able to do something that I loved. When you're talking about navigating the South in terms of athletics, in my environment, I grew up around the street, around the corner from Jackson State University. I could hear the band playing as they practiced each night. Going to Jackson State's games on the weekend. My mom is an alumnus of Jackson State. That was a part of our life. We traveled all over the country following them. That really inspired me even more. Just seeing how the crowd reacted to those players that were on that field. But in the South, if you're a good athlete, you have a lot of privileges. Uh, some good, some bad. So I really enjoyed my experience as an athlete, but it really provided me a lot of work ethic and discipline. Once again, reinforcing what my parents expected of me at home.
Now, I want to bring this up because I have a follow-up question to that because I'm your neighbor to the east,
Okay.
okay? And I know, and as well as you know, that in the South, the whole entire Southeast to the Southwest, football is a religion.
That's right.
And so being a top-notch football player, especially if you're the one that's considered the star of the team, as you mentioned, there are a lot of quirks, a lot of great and bad things that come along with that. Tell us, do you have any experience or know of experiences where there were situations where students that did not have those top-notch grades got that pass because of being that superstar athlete?
Yes. I think that's a part of the culture in some places.
Mhm.
That was when I got into coaching. I did not want to follow that path in terms of dealing with young people, because if you're not developing them along the way, at some point, the sports is going to be over. You're going to have to take those cleats off. You're going to have to get off of that field. You're going to have to get off of that court. And if you have not developed yourself, what are you left with? When that final whistle blows, you hadn't developed yourself in the classroom. You don't have any credentials. You don't have any skills. You hadn't built your capacity, and you go off into society and do the best that you can do to take care of yourself. And normally you have a lot of stories that don't end well because student athletes have not prepared themselves.
Mhm.
So I've seen it. I've seen it growing up as a player. I've seen those. I've seen the result of that. I had teammates that didn't prepare themselves, didn't take academics seriously, and probably were much more talented than myself and others, but they didn't take care of the business in the classroom.
Mm. So, when did you first realize that education, not just athletics, would become your life's work?
Well, I guess the last down after I played at Alcorn State University. I didn't go to the next level. I had a back surgery, knee surgery. Body was battered, and I had to figure out what was next because in the beginning, I really didn't think I was going to need a degree. I thought I was going to the next level. I thought I would play in the NFL a couple of years and get out of the NFL and open a business or something of that nature. I didn't think I would need my degrees.
Mhm.
And at that point, my dad had a conversation with me. He said, why don't you go back and get you some education courses and get into education? So, that for that one time I listened to him and I got those education courses and I got into it. And once I got to dealing with those young student athletes, I was really hooked. I love to help people and help people better themselves. Because when it's all said and done, we'll have a legacy, and people will say, what has this person contributed to this world to make it better? I want it to be something good that I've helped somebody.
Mhm. Your foundation, it seems like it was a very strong foundation. Hats off to both your mother and your father for being great parents. When you just think about that whole thing, that when you were at that crossroad and your father gave you that advice that you finally listened to, have there ever been any students that you've come across in your time in education that maybe you had to give them that similar advice to really move forward in their life?
Yes, man. Hundreds of student athletes that you come across, and they get to the crossroads. You really have to have life conversations with these students, and as a coach, I always wanted to talk to students about more than just football. I didn't view them as a piece of property or someone that was going to help me just win. I wanted to be able to add value to them in some way, so that when they finish with the game, when they finish with my program, that they would be productive citizens. So I've had hundreds of conversations to lead and guide different guys, whether it be in academics, excuse me, whether it be in academics or athletics.
What lessons from your childhood still guide your leadership today?
Say that again.
What lessons from your childhood still guide your leadership today?
I think the biggest thing that I got from my dad, that I can think about with my childhood, if you're willing to put in the time, effort, and work, you can accomplish anything. So I have a serious work ethic, and it really guides me in my leadership. I'm willing to put in the time and work to improve environments.
So let's transition over to your work and to your athletics and playing in college football and your athletics experience. What was it like being a Division I athlete at Alcorn State University?
And so, Northerners usually pronounce it Alcorn. We call it Alcorn, and we always say always Alcorn. So, if the alumni hear you say that, they'll be ready to fight. I had a pleasant experience at Alcorn. I actually came in as a freshman with Steve McNair. We were in the same class, so we had a great recruiting class. We played all over the country. We played on TV on a regular basis, and I had quite a few teammates that were drafted high in the draft and had great careers in the NFL. But once again, when you go to Alcorn State, you don't have all the resources that the other universities may have. But one thing that you'll learn is discipline and work ethic. And I think those two things take you a long way in life. If I, of the few things in life that I would do again, that's going back to Alcorn State University.
Oh, wow. I guess there's nothing like being a Brave, right?
And no doubt about it.
The pressures placed on Black student athletes shape your worldview.
Say that again, you kind of broke up.
How did the pressure placed on Black student athletes shape your worldview?
Well, this is what I understand from my experience, and this is the way I think about it. Playing football as an African American student athlete, you're going to have a lot of adversity. You're going to experience a lot of adversity from something as simple as the amount of practice that you put in, the amount of practice time that you required. I can remember waking up at 5:30 every morning. We had to run something called the 3.2. We would leave from there. Our first class was at 8 o'clock. You couldn't have a class after 3 o'clock because practice began at 3:30. We would leave practice about 6 o'clock and go and eat, and then we had a meeting at 7 o'clock. We had curfew at 11 o'clock. Then once again, you have your travel schedule. When you travel, some days, some weeks you may leave in the middle of the week, Wednesday or Thursday, going to play games all over the country. And you're still expected to maintain your academics with all of that. So one thing that I learned from it is that you have to be able to function in adverse environments. Although I had all that responsibility and I had all those expectations in terms of athletics, I still had to meet the demand of the academics. And I had quite a few professors that they would lead with Mr. Jones, I know that you're a football player. I love the way you play on Saturday, but I still expect you to come in this classroom and be prepared. So that meant a lot of late nights trying to keep up and getting in studies whenever you could. But you learn to fight through a lot of adversity.
So, when you began your coaching career, did you have any students that were facing any of those struggles? And if so, what did you do to help them to remedy that?
Yes, I think any athlete that plays is going to face that. You're going to be faced with that. You have to, for one, the coach has to let them know that it's important, because if they don't think it's important and they don't have the home structure where people at home value education or think that that's important, they're just going to do enough to get by. And a lot of times in athletic settings, if a kid can play, people look the other way with their behavior. People look the other way when it comes to their academics and pass them on. So I definitely had to set the tone with my players, and it was like I was a surrogate father. Uh, I want those kids to be successful as if they were my own kids. So I set the standard for my expectation, same thing as my parents did. And it may have been simple at the time, but we don't want anything lower than a C on your report cards. We expect you. We used to pass around biweekly reports that they would have to take and have signed by their teachers on their conduct and their grades. And if those things weren't in good standing, we used to have some difficult conversations. But as I went through that process, you saw character improve. You saw grades improve. And anytime that you can improve character and academics at the same time, I think you're making good progress.
What misconceptions do people have about the life of a college athlete?
Well, I think some people may think it's stress-free. And it's a lot of stress. You have a lot of expectations on you, especially when it comes to winning. And if you look at now, like the college scene in terms of expectations to win is heavy on the coaches as well as the players.
How did football prepare you for leadership in education?
Well, I would say, there are a lot of instances or situations that I was put in where I had to lead individuals on all the teams, all the way from elementary through college. And one lesson that you learn early on, that all leaders are not going to be popular. You're not going to be liked all the time, but you have to be courageous in your leadership in doing what's best for the organization. And you have to have courage in order to voice that. So I think that really prepared me in terms of the leadership positions that I have now.
What movements from your athletic career still motivate you today?
You said, say that again.
What moments from your athletic career still motivate you today?
I won't say that there are any moments that motivate me today. Football was a means to an end. That was something that I did. I was good at it, and I used it for what it was worth. I used it to get a free education. I don't really harp too much on that. That's kind of a thing of the past.
Let's move over to your transition to teaching and coaching.
Okay.
What inspired you to move from athletics into teaching and coaching?
Well, it's a requirement that in order to coach in the states that I've coached in, which is Tennessee and Arkansas and Mississippi, you had to have a teaching position in order to coach. So it was necessary for me to do. But once you get in the classroom, I always had the ability to do academic work. And I always wanted to set the same standards for the students that my parents set for me. Kids, a lot of times are discouraged by their environments. People have told them that they can't learn. But one of the things that we tell our students in this district right now, smart is something that you can get. If you're putting the effort and the time and focus into it, you can learn anything that you want to learn. So that within itself, that really motivated me once I got in that classroom in terms of working with students.
Did your coaching philosophy mirror your leadership philosophy?
Well, I like to keep things simple. As a coach, you have to keep things very simple. Don't try to do too much, and be very focused on what it is that you're trying to do. Setting goals for what you want to accomplish, and putting a plan together to accomplish those goals. That's the same thing in coaching as well as leading school districts.
Mhm. So, can you tell us, were you a head coach or a position coach?
Well, I started off as a position coach. I think my first job was a defensive coordinator in Memphis, Tennessee at Treadwell High School. Over the time, I became head coach at Treadwell, uh, several other schools. Then I became an AD and a head football coach.
Okay. So, as AD and as the head coach of your team, when you had to take on that responsibility, knowing that there was a teaching prerequisite that's involved, how are you able to separate the classroom and the work as a head coach and AD on the other side at the same time? How are you able to do that? What are some of the things that you did?
Well, the biggest thing is planning and organization, planning, preparation, and organization. You would definitely have to be organized in that classroom in order to create engaging lessons and to make sure the students were learning. One of the first tips that my dad gave me, and he kind of gave me this tip when he was teaching me in class. My dad was a math teacher. He taught at the same high school that I went to, and I hated going to his class. I was glad when the year was over. I think I got a B out of that class. I took algebra 2 from him, and it was coming up on the holiday. It was It was the Christmas holidays, and everyone else in the building they were having parties or whatnot. And Dad was still coming in, putting problems on the board, and we had to work these problems, and we were working from bell to bell. And I'm like, hey, Pops, man, everybody else is having parties and you in here teaching. Like, what's up? And he was like, son, the minute that you give a child some free time, that's when your problems will start in the classroom. So I took that from my dad, and that's one of the first things that I was going to do. There wasn't going to be any downtime in the classroom for the kids. So I was serious about making sure that teaching and learning was occurring in my classroom. Uh, Football, same thing. At one of the large schools that I coached at, I had 12 assistants. I was the head coach. So we really just planned. Um, we delegated the work. You have to learn how to get everybody else bought in to where they take care of their part. So once again, that takes a lot of organization. So the biggest thing is giving everybody the vision and getting them to help you accomplish that vision. Everybody has a role to play. Everybody's important on the team. There's no small part. Everybody has a big part in organizations like that.
Ooh, now see, now that's where I'm thinking about inclusion. How are you able to bring that into the fold? Because there's a lot to have everybody to jail and to do all those different things in those two facets. How are you able to do that part? Because inclusion is really, really huge.
So when you play on teams all of your life, you
Mhm,
understand that not only your role is important,
mhm.
uh, you understand that other people are counting on you to get the job done, to win. And also, you understand that you need that person to do their job in order to win. So I take that concept, and as I move into the various leadership positions, you have to get everybody involved. Um, it's imperative that you do, because everyone has something positive to offer. It may be small, it may be big, but everybody has different talents. Everybody has different intelligences. So it's important that you get everyone involved. And I know that I don't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. What did you learn about young people during your early years in the classroom?
Well, one thing about young people that you learn is that they're studying you, they're observing you. Everything that you do, and it's important for you to set an example. But I also learned that young people will meet the standard wherever you set it. If you set high standards, they'll meet those standards. If you set low standards, they're going to meet those standards. So I had a mentor that said that you want to be the thermostat in the room. You want to control that temperature in the room. You want to dictate what happens in the room and not let anyone else do that. So, and you know, once you build relationships with students, they'll run through the wall for you. They'll do anything that you ask them to do, but it's important that you build those relationships with them.
Wow. Well, actually, I'm gonna hit a little bit more of that a little bit later in the show, because that's really interesting, and learning concepts, and well, with young people learning concepts, because from high school, they're learning a different process, that when they get to college, they learn concepts. And so, I'm just gonna, well, let me just ask you this. When you were teaching, that is from both classroom and as well as coaching on the field, were you teaching concepts, or were you teaching the students like pretty much just how to flow to move up?
Well, I'm a big proponent on teaching fundamentals, techniques and fundamentals and strategies.
Mhm.
Even when you're talking about learning, you have to teach students specific learning strategies in order for them to be successful in the classroom. And I think once they learn strategies and techniques and fundamentals, those are transferable to new situations. So I think that's very important.
So can you tell us, with your educational foundation, that is from both your classroom as well as on the football field, how were you able to transcend that over into your work out in the community?
Well, when you're working with the community, you have to get a good understanding of what the community values.
Mhm.
Um, and once you understand what they value, you can begin to have conversations. Um, you can share your ideas. You can learn their ideas. And once they see you're willing to listen and that you value their perspectives, then you can begin to work on accomplishing something bigger, a vision or a mission.
Mm. So how did you balance high expectations with empathy and support?
Wow, that's a great question. Now, my mentality and my leadership style in my earlier career, I demanded the high expectations, like I was telling you earlier. Students will meet the standard that you set.
Mhm.
Uh, Earlier in my career, now probably wasn't much support or empathy. But as you get a little older, and the testosterone wears off a little bit, then you begin to develop that empathy muscle and that support muscle. Now I understand that you have to have conversations with not only students but with adults about, hey, what's going on in your life. Uh, what do you feel like your gaps are in terms of capacity? What can I do to support you? Because a lot of times when people hear that you're willing to support them and to help them get better and really understand that you value them and you want to add value to them, you can gain a teammate.
Mm. What was the biggest challenge transitioning from athlete to education?
From athlete to education, I would say, and I would have to say, basically with athletics, you're playing games and everything is about ball, winning. That's your entire focus. When you transition to education, in terms of from teaching, the lesson plans, the faculty meetings, that was a tough transition for me because it took discipline to learn that craft if you had never been exposed to how to do a lesson plan. You didn't understand the importance of the faculty meetings. That was challenging for me.
Mhm. So let's move over to your principalship and school turnaround. You've led schools from failing to thriving. What's the first step in turning a school around?
The first thing that you have to do when you go in is observe, to see what's happening, what's going on, what the culture is like.
Mhm.
Uh, then you have to dive into your data, see what the strengths and weaknesses are of your data. Once you assess that, um, you have to put a plan in place to address those things. If the culture is great, hey, great. If it's not, you have to put in some systems. Have to build some systems to address that. Um, and the biggest thing for turnaround is using that data to drive your instruction. And once you use that data, identify that data to drive your instruction, you have to address the instruction. And when I'm saying you have to address the instruction, you have to assess what your teacher's strengths are, what their weaknesses are. You have to look at the instructional models that are being used in the schools. Is this effective? You have to look and see, when we're talking about planning lessons, uh, do we have a meaningful objective for our lessons? Do we have a criteria for success in our lessons where the students basically lays out what I need to do to accomplish this objective or this assignment? Um, are we giving students feedback? Are we telling them specifically what they did wrong on this specific assignment, how they can make it right, how they can make it better? And also, are we checking for understanding throughout the lessons? But one of the bigger things, along with the lesson model, is the observation feedback process. And when I'm speaking of the observation feedback process, this is a process where the principal goes in to improve instruction. And they're basically going in to look at instruction in 15-minute intervals and giving the teachers bite-sized feedback on how to improve their instruction. Um, Research says that once instruction improves, then your student achievement improves. So you have to make sure that you have a good culture in place, good morale in your buildings, and then you address your data and your instruction piece.
So, can you take us through the process that you used in order to turn the school around that you helped bring into the light?
Yeah, of course. I have a system called the 5 wins. And the 5 wins are basically, it addresses your culture in your building. Um, we look at the arrival at school every day. We want to make sure that everybody's in place for students when they arrive, that they're coming in safe, the bus riders, the car riders. We look at dismissal, the same thing. How are our students leaving the building? Where the bus is going to pick them up at? Where the car ride is going to be picked up at? We also talk about our transitions in the hallway. What's the expectation for our students to transition in the hallway? Um, we want the inside voice. We want them transitioning on the right side of the hall. What's the environment like in the cafeteria? Are they allowed to get up in the cafeteria once they sit down? Where's everybody seated? Where's our supervision? who's doing what, how do students go to the restroom in school. Do we give them a pass, or do they just get up and go on their own? So basically, you have to get some structure in order to develop a good culture in the building. We call that our 5 wins. Before we can talk about instruction, we have to win in those 5 areas. So once we establish that, we begin looking at our data once again. What are our kids good at? What standards do they perform well on? What are our weaknesses? What are our gaps? We began putting in interventions based on our students. A lot of people say, we use data to drive our decisions. We make our teachers start putting a name to that data. What is Malcolm's strength and weakness? What is Charles' strength and weakness? Because when you give it a name, it becomes a little more personable. And that last phase, like I said, we keep that culture going. We stay current with that data. And the biggest thing is those principals are going to be in those classrooms improving instruction. And normally when you have those 2 things in place, the school turns around.
Well, that sounds like that you came up with a nice system that you were able to make complexity simplified.
Well, as a coach, we use the KISS method.
Okay.
Keep it super simple.
Yeah. That's well, that also goes on with the concept that we had in the military where they say keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, how do you build trust in a school community that has experienced chronic failure?
Well, I think transparency is the first key. You have to let people know how we're performing. This is where we are. This is where we want to go. And you can't hide anything from them. I think being overly transparent is the first step to that. You also have to invite everyone to the table in order to help you turn the school around. Find out what their thoughts are about, hey, what is troubling this school? Why do you think that we're not successful? Do you trust the educators? Do you think that we want what's best for kids? So I think those are just some things that you can do in order to build trust. Collaboration and transparency.
So what does effective instructional leadership look like in real time?
Wow. What does it look like in real time? The first thing you have to do, you have to be in the classroom. Okay. That's the first step. You can't improve instruction in your office. That's the first step. Having the willingness and the proximity to where the instruction is happening. But the next thing is really finding out your own gaps as an instructional leader. What are my instructional gaps? If I have to coach this instruction, I need to find out what I do well, and what I know, and what I don't know, and what I need to learn in order to help in terms of improving instruction.
You shift a school culture that has normalized low expectations.
Well, once again, you have to be transparent with the data. You have to bring everyone to the table and collaborate. But you also, as the instructional leader, have to set high standards for your students as well as your teachers. If you come in and you just accept the data as is and you don't push, then your school is not going to turn around. It's important for you as the leader to get buy-in as well as setting that standard high.
What role does data play in your decision-making as a principal?
Well, I think in every case that you can use data, you need to be using data to make all your decisions. You don't just need to make decisions based on feelings or what you think. You need to be making a decision based on what's in front of you, how your students have performed, or there's an area in the school where, in terms of our discipline, at a certain time of day, if I'm going to make some shifts or whatnot, I need to make those shifts based on what my discipline data is telling me. You know, my incidents may be happening at 1 o'clock in the day. So we need to delve down and find out what's happening at 1 o'clock that's not happening at 8 o'clock. So you have to use data in order to be effective in what you're doing.
So can you tell us this? How do you know, or have you ever experienced the fact of not trusting the data? I mean, could the data have ever been wrong, or has it ever been wrong?
Well, I think you can have some situations where you have a human factor involved. Like you can have grade inflation. If you're using that data to determine if kids have learned a specific topic, you may have an individual that's has low standards, that's teaching in the classroom, and maybe inflating the grades. And you're thinking that, okay, we learned this standard on the pacing guide, they've learned this standard on the pacing guide, and we'll be ready when the state assessment comes. And then you bomb the state assessment. So, I mean, you can have some instances like that, but you try to remove all factors that can give you that inaccurate data.
So let's transition over to your role as an assistant superintendent leadership.
Okay.
What does system level leadership require that school level leadership does not?
I think you have to be able to look at things from a 30,000 foot view. You have to look how every action is going to affect the overall system. A lot of times as a principal, you just have to be concerned about what's happening in your building. I want to make sure that my building is functioning well and I don't have any issues in my building, and that my students are performing and my teachers are taking care of the business. When you transition into this level, you have to make sure that the district is performing at a high level. So, you know, your vision kind of broadens a little bit, shall I say.
So are you saying that if you're unable to see things clearly, then you can't be in that level as a superintendent vice in the school? Because as a superintendent, that means that with all this being on you, your lenses are always has to be clear so that you can see the vision as to what's happening and a wide peripheral view that you have to see.
I agree with that, exactly how you said it. I normally look at this level of leadership with 3 P's. Either we're dealing with personnel, politics, or progress. And when I'm making decisions, I have to make sure that I cover each one of those areas. Am I dealing with a political situation? If I make this decision, are the politics, is there going to be some political blowback? If I'm dealing with a personnel decision, who is this person tied to? You know, am I dealing with a progress decision? Is this going to affect the academics? So you have to have a broad lens when you reach this level.
So but also in that case, just with that explanation, how important is it that from that higher level as a superintendent that you're actually communicating with all the schools that are under you? How important is that?
Well, I think it's very important. Everybody has to understand the vision and the mission of the school district, and you have to be in constant contact. Not just in a supervisory way, just in a support way, making sure that they have everything that they need in order to be successful. So it's very important that we stay in constant contact.
So then when you guys look at everything from the school, the people that's over the schools and the students themselves, what role does the students play in that whole situation?
Well, if the students don't perform, then your school district doesn't get the grade that you want them to obtain, and it's going to be hard for you to keep your job if the students don't buy in. So it's important, and I keep saying, I keep talking about relationships. It's important that those adults understand how to build relationships with those students. Students are not going to learn from people that they don't care for, that or they think that don't care for them. You know, they're according to how the book How the Brain Learns, it speaks about relationships, and it goes in depth, and it talks about the mechanism in your brain that scans the environment for threats, whether that be a physical threat or psychological threat. And you know, when I came up in schools, teachers would embarrass you in front of the entire class, publicly humiliate you, tell you, this is my class, you're going to do what I want you to do, or whatnot. But just looking at that could be perceived as a threat. And once that relationship is broken, it's going to be hard for you to get that child not to think you're a threat, and hard to get that child to do anything that you're asking them to do, because they feel like you're a threat. Their brains are in flight or flight mode. Every time they see you, you know, they feel like they need to fight, flight, or freeze. And that shuts the frontal cortex off where the thinking occurs. So if our goal is to make sure that learning is occurring, we need to make sure that our kids are not sitting in these seats in fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Wow. That is, I will say that is definitely interesting, because I mean, I think maybe it's due to a lot of sensitivity with the kids of today, because I think that stern leadership from the time that I was in school, it really helped me to stay structured and focused. But I think now with today's students, and your point is very well taken, and because I'm understanding that that's how schools have to operate, but it's because of the sensitivity of the kids. What do you think changed in between that time?
Well, the kids that we're dealing with today are totally different from us. You look at the presence of social media, the cell phone, the video games. That's what the kids are spending a majority of their time on. Their brains are wired totally different from ours. I can remember growing up, and most of my time I spent riding bikes, playing football, basketball, baseball. We were outside. So these are totally different humans that we're dealing with at this time. So you can't attack them the same way as we were attacked. They're totally different. And a lot of times, like I talked about earlier, there are certain strategies that you have to use. If I'm having an issue with a kid, I got to take them outside and have a private conversation with them. Try to find out what's going on, if they're experiencing any issues, and then bring them back around. Hey, I really need you to pay attention, or I need you to do A, B, C, or D, so that you won't miss out on this concept that I'm trying to teach you. You're going to need this a little ways down the road. And when you do that in a private manner, you built a relationship. You put a deposit in. It's positive now, rather than telling that kid, shut your mouth, don't you say another word while I'm talking. You know what I mean? You know, so it's just a different strategy. That was an old school strategy, the way that they used to deal with us.
You're absolutely right. How did you move a middle school from an F to a C in that 1 year? Because we talked about a little bit about how you turned that school around, but I think that change that you did, that was so drastic, but you did it in 1 year. How were you able to do that?
Well, I can say I had a great principal in the building that would listen, that was in the classrooms, held teachers accountable, as well as kids accountable. And once again, I don't want to be repetitive, but those same systems that we talked about before, the 5 wins, the observation feedback process, paying attention to data, and letting data inform our instruction.
The biggest misconceptions about district leadership.
You say it again?
What are the biggest misconceptions about district leadership?
Well, I would say one of the biggest misconceptions about district leadership is that it's easy. This is juggling the politics, the personnel, and the progress, the three P's as I call them. They can definitely be they can be challenging, and you'll find some instances where the decisions that you have to make have are affected by politics more so than what's best for kids.
Well, you said that like now about 4 times, so I got to ask, not being just making it kind of broad and simple here when I ask this question. Like, what are the politics like? What is that influence like?
Well, when you have adults, and I won't be specific about any district that I've worked in, but
Right.
you have adults that have personal agendas that are self-serving for them as well as maybe their friends, and sometimes that gets in the way of doing what's best for kids.
Mhm.
And you have to stand up and be courageous and stand up for what's best for kids in all cases, in my opinion.
Um, you coach principals who are struggling.
Well, I coach principals currently. You really have to observe them and find out what their gaps are, and just have open and honest conversations. You have to teach them what it is that they need to prioritize, what's important, what can be delegated, um, and in most cases, I'm telling principals the first thing that we need to prioritize is the importance of instruction and being in that classroom. That's the first step. Also, building great relationships with your staff so that they can execute what you need to get executed. A lot of times people think, well, I'm in charge and I have this title, people are going to do what I ask them to do, and that's not always the case. Once again, you go back to relationships. You have to build relationships with people for them to help you accomplish your vision and your mission.
So, can you tell us, what does sustainable school improvement actually look like?
Being consistent, doing the work that needs to be done. You can't get complacent. Once again, keeping that data in front of you, and making sure that you're addressing your data.
Mhm. You know, as they talk about the education system or schools in general, a lot of people have the construment that education is different based on region. So you have the South, Southeast, and Southwest. You've got the East and the Northeast. You've got the Midwest and the West. Can you tell me, from your experience in the education system, what would be some of the differences that you can plainly see or know that's different in how things are taught in our South Southeast region compared to the Midwest? What would be the difference that you know of?
Well, this is what I'll say with that. I believe school is school no matter where you are.
Uh-huh.
Some schools have more resources. Some districts have more resources. Some districts have fewer resources. I think it comes down to um, the capacity of the personnel that you have in your buildings.
Mhm.
Uh, some people have greater capacity than others, and it comes down to resources and economics.
Mhm.
The economically strong areas, normally where people want to live and be, they normally have a better instructor in
Mhm.
most cases.
Mhm.
Um, in rural high need areas or urban areas, they struggle sometimes to get quality instructors and personnel and they may be lacking specific capacity or knowledge. But I think school is school no matter where you go.
Mhm. Let's transition over to your work as an entrepreneur and the AI integration. What inspired you to launch Dr. MJ2 educational products and services?
I started engaging with Chat GPT, Gemini, various forms of AI, and I saw how it could improve the educational experience. There was a lot of information and training that I went through, and I wanted to share that with educators. Um, it's still new and it's moving very fast, and a lot of educational spaces have not truly adapted it yet. But I really think it can improve our practice greatly. And if it can improve our practice, that means learning will get better. So that was just a venture that I set out to do, is improve our practice.
So, how has that been working so far?
Well, it's steady, but it's up and down. Like I said, a lot of schools have not adapted or adopted it yet. But in time, you're not going to be able to ignore it anymore. You know, kids have access to it. The teachers have access to it now. You know, but it can really help you in various areas, from the classroom all the way to central office. I use it daily, and it helps me at every part of my job.
I'm going to say that, as of today's time and the climate, especially in education, I'm going to say that I want you to know that your innovation, I think, is something that should most likely be looked at around the country primarily. Because when you think of this kind of concept that not only helps but improves and enhances education in a way that it can take some easements off of teachers. But I think because of going back to that one term, political climate,
Right.
that people may say, oh no, not that AI, not that AI, and they're still running from it, but it's not going anywhere. But I think your innovativeness is like really a good thing that you're doing.
Yes, and I use it throughout my district, and normally the people in my district get to benefit from it free. My knowledge in terms of uh, how much I've worked with it. We've created so many things with it, and it has really helped our teachers and kids.
So, I mean, are you making a pitch through education at some other levels to try to implement the things that you're doing, or are you just letting it stay at the point of where it is now at home base for the time being?
Right now, it's just home based, and I'm working. I'm always working on something. We're working on a few projects right now, and hopefully they'll come through for us.
How do you help schools integrate AI responsibly and effectively?
Well, the first thing that I always share with people in the training when you're dealing with AI, the first thing that you need to know that it will hallucinate. It can hallucinate. That means that it can basically make up things. Um, and the guardrails that you have to share with them is you always put a human in the loop. And when I say put a human in the loop, if you're asking for something to be output by AI, that means that you need to read it, ensure the source of where it got it, and there are certain strategies to go about in finding that out. But not only that, you shouldn't be putting sensitive information in there in terms of students uh, and things of that nature. So those guardrails, those are some pretty basic guardrails to protect kids and students.
What fears do educators have about AI, and how do you address them?
Well, I know one of the fears is that students are using AI to complete their assignments. Teachers feel like learning isn't taking place. So
Right.
this is a shift, right? So when kids start making shifts and the environment changes in the classroom, we have to make shifts. So I don't think the solution is to ban AI. I think it's to embrace AI. You have to really think about what your assignments are asking kids to do now, like writing an essay. That is probably going to become primitive because AI can do it in what, 1 to 2 seconds. So
Yep.
maybe we need to start changing our assignments, knowing that kids have AI in order to ensure that learning is taking place.
How can AI support, not replace, teachers?
For example, so you have various levels of students in classrooms, right? All of them learn differently. All of them are on different levels. When a teacher designs a lesson for a specific standard, this particular objective, that teacher has to do what we call create differentiated lesson plans, so that she can create a plan so that each child can access the information that they're trying to teach. When you put a certain formula or a certain prompt into AI, it will produce you a differentiated lesson if you needed to for each kid based on their gaps. Now, if you're talking about the amount of time that would take a teacher to do, it's going to take that teacher quite a bit of time. But from an AI perspective, you can put that in there and you can have that printed out in a minute or so.
Mm-hmm.
So it saves time. And once again, it builds the teacher's capacity, because if I'm meeting the needs of all those different students by differentiating the lesson with utilizing AI, that means I'm getting better at my job and I'm meeting the needs of all students.
So, what does the future of AI in education look like through your lens?
I think that AI is going to be a permanent fixture in the education space. I believe that before you know it, we're going to have, with the shortage of teachers, you're going to have some AI teachers that are going to be teaching our students.
Are you serious? Do you believe that?
I believe that.
Wow. Now, now I'm sorry, but I got to play devil's advocate. What does that look like?
Well, like right now, we have some areas in our district that we don't have instructors, so we have to get virtual teachers, right?
Right.
So students basically Zoom with a teacher that is somewhere else across the country, and they're learning from that particular teacher. Now, AI has the ability to create a bot. Just say if we want to talk about Algebra 1, to teach Algebra 1 with all the information and lay out lessons for kids, and they can answer questions and basically run a classroom. So,
Wow.
and I think it will probably look like you'll have an aide in that room that's probably not paid as much,
Mhm.
uh, maybe a paraprofessional, but the AI person will be on the screen teaching the kids. That's just my belief now, and that's my opinion.
Oh, you know, now I asked that question. I know that it's going to be impossible, but I would love to sit in a class where that's happening. And when I say that, you know, it's not for, oh, let me just distort it. It's like to really see that conceptually happening, because I can visualize something like that, but in actual fruition, that would be something that I think everybody would want to see that.
But think about this. Now, when you call some companies, you're talking to an AI bot
Yep.
that can answer your questions, whatever you ask it. If it can't answer your question, it's gonna get you to the right place where your questions can be answered. So it's already happening right now, where you have AI answering these questions. You have the humanoid AI robots being built.
Yep.
So it's coming.
Hmm. So let's transition over to your consulting and professional learning.
Mhm.
What patterns do you see across districts nationwide?
Man, now when it comes to districts that may not be performing as well, you see a lot of the same things. You see a lack of systems, you see a lack of structure, and the standards in turn, standards and expectations for adults and students are low. So those are the repetitive things that you see. And once you've seen it so much, you know exactly what you need to do to address it to make it better.
Why is effective effort such a central part of your work?
So effective effort is tied to high expectations teaching. Um, that is written by John Safier. So basically what high expectations teaching is, this is persuading kids that, well, persuading them that smart is something that you can get. You want to persuade them to believe that and act on that. And the way that they get to that is through effective effort. And you have what, 6 elements of effective effort that you have kids to reflect on every time they do an assessment. They survey themselves. How much time did I put into this? Did I really study this at home? Did I put 10 minutes in? Did I put 20 minutes in? Did I put an hour? The focus. Was I focused, or did I have my cell phone looking at my cell phone every 5 minutes instead of totally focusing on the materials that I should have been focusing on? Am I using my feedback that my teacher has given me about my work? You know, a lot of and feedback isn't negative. It isn't judgmental. This is basically just telling you, hey, this is what you're doing to keep you from being unsuccessful on this particular standard. Then you talk about commitment. Am I really committed to being a better student? Am I committed to my goals that I set at the beginning of the week for this particular objective? And the last element is persistence. We talked about strategies earlier, and did I once I got stuck, did I use another strategy? Did I switch to another strategy? You know, that's what we talk about when we're talking about, you know, with the persistence. And then resourcefulness. If I get stuck, did I go to my teacher? Did I go to a peer? Do I know where to go get help? So when you begin to immerse students in that effective effort process, you're basically tying their performance to effort and not their intelligence. You know, the study that they talk about in that book, earlier in this country, they wanted to say that that you're born with all the intelligence you're going to get. You're born with intelligence based on who your parents are, what your genes look like, and that's just not true. You can grow your intelligence based on the effort, the effective effort that you put in. And I hope I didn't get too long-winded on that.
No, because again, I think that's one of those things that as you think about these methods and these concepts that you use in order to make your district that much better, these are some things that I found to be really, really interesting in looking in reading your bio, but then seeing how you actually did like this. But it's also those processes and opportunities that you were able to forge and make things happen. This is about being results driven, and so this is what makes your story and the things that you do so unique. So no, you can never be long-winded about that. That's just the truth.
Right. And when you start implementing that process, when you make a kid reflect on his effective effort after every big assignment, assessment, you start to see a change because you're really holding them accountable for, you know, you can't say I'm not good at math, I'm not good at English. No, let's look at your effort here, your effective effort. Let's look at that first and see, when I put the effective effort in, does my performance get better? You know, when I don't put that effective effort in, my performance isn't that great. So once they see that when I put this effective effort in, I can accomplish anything and I can actually get smart.
Mm. Do you help leaders build capacity instead of dependency?
One thing, and I always go back to my dad. My dad told me that if you can read, you can do anything. And what I've found in my professional career, when you read and seek knowledge, then your capacity grows. I think it's very important to read continuously and never, ever get enough learning.
What makes professional development meaningful rather than performative?
Now, I'll go back to that data again. You have to base that, well, two things you have to base it around. Whatever your system is in your district, I think it needs to be based around that to help people perform in your system. I also think you need to make sure that you're doing needs assessments to find out from your team, hey, what is it that you want to learn about? What do you feel like your weakness is? What are your strengths? And when you're building that professional development plan, that you're taking all that into account. What I need them to perform well in my system. What are they saying that they need? So you need to make sure that your professional development plan is aligned in order to make it effective.
So, what is the biggest leadership blind spot you encounter?
Um, I would say one of my blind spots is thinking that everybody is passionate and they love what they're doing like I do. You know, I'm up early in the morning and excited and fired up and ready to go. And I think everybody ought to feel like that, but that's not necessarily the case.
Transition over to the book that you wrote. You wrote
Okay.
a book called Cheated.
Yeah, I've completed the manuscript, and this is basically a personal memoir and a system critique of college athletics, or athletics in general in this country. I finished the manuscript. I hadn't published it yet, but it will be coming out. And basically, I tell my life story, how I got into football, how I got hooked, the different mindsets that I had as I transitioned upward. And there's two ways that you can be cheated. You can cheat yourself, and grown people can also cheat you. You kind of talked about it a little earlier when people turn a blind eye to your behavior, when they don't hold you accountable or have high expectations for your academics. And basically, they end up using you up for your talent and pushing you on and looking for the next person when your time is passed. So I look forward to getting that out. Just telling my story. I want to help student athletes and parents and coaches. And you know, you really want to set a bar for coaches. Hey, you got to be more than a coach. You got to see this kid as more than a product. And you have an obligation to try to add value to him in other ways other than just football or basketball or sports.
Can I just we don't have to go into the manuscript because you said it's not actually printed, but what I found so inspirational about that is that, just the ideas and things of that nature. Would you care to discuss that now, or can we discuss that on your next appearance on the show?
I mean, we can talk a little about it. I talk about in there, like I said, I shared my personal experience. At one point at Alcorn, I was rated the number 7 cornerback in the nation, big schools, small schools, or whatever. I was I think I had played 2 years at that point, and my focus was totally on football. I was just doing enough to get by. I can remember my mom got my grades, and I think I had a C in chemistry or whatnot, and she jumped me. And my dad stepped in and was like, "Hey, this isn't high school anymore. the curriculum is a little more rigorous. You know, he has a lot of demands on him, you know, from a college standpoint in terms of playing football. Kind of, you know, chill out, give him a break. And but what Dad wasn't understanding is that my focus and value was on football, and I was saying to myself, I'm reading my own press clippings. I'm having this success on the field. I'm getting these different accolades. In my head, I'm going to be drafted in the NFL. You know, I got teammates all around me getting drafted. So that's a real thing. And I basically, my identity basically got focused on football, period, and just doing enough in the classroom to get by. So I talk about that in there. And I think the only thing that saved me from myself is really having a strong set of parents that weren't going to tolerate me basically putting football first in academics last. Because when it was all said and done, as a senior, after I had back surgery and knee surgery, I was just a regular guy, and I was going to have to transition into society. But they made me go back and get my master's. They made me get those education courses. And when I think about that, think about guys that are playing ball that don't have those strong parents, that don't value education. What happens to them? You know, there's an obligation. I believe that there's an obligation for institutions and programs to ensure that athletes are moving toward gaining some credentials and being productive citizens. So I talk about that in the book, and then I talk about some examples. For example, well, I won't even go there, but I talk about a couple of examples in major college football where kids are being used, and only used for their muscle, and once their muscle is gone, they're done.
Right. Well, yeah. I'll just say this. I would definitely love to once Cheated is released and it's out there on the open market. I want to have you back to talk about this because some of the things, and especially from getting what I understood out your bio, you know, it just made for interesting talk for people to know about.
Okay.
Um, but let's go to Black History because when I chatted with you, I told you that we do Black History 365,
Yeah.
and I asked you who were the most influential person or persons in your life and career. You told me Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, and Dr. King. And can you tell us how has Muhammad Ali shaped your understanding of courage and conviction?
Think about this, man. In the times when Muhammad Ali was at his prime, um, Muhammad had the courage to speak his mind and stand on what he believed in. I will always think about that as long as I live. Everybody doesn't have courage. Um, and Muhammad Ali exhibited courage in standing up for what he believed in and his value system. That's my guy. I have a picture in my office of him, and he's my idol. He's one of my idols.
So, what aspects of Malcolm X's philosophy resonate most deeply with you?
Well, when I think about Malcolm X, my namesake, I always think about the line that he said, "By any means necessary." And when he says "by any means necessary," I apply that to my life when I think about whatever it takes for me to be successful, and whatever it takes for me to add value to people and to help people and make people's lives better. We need to do that by any means necessary.
Wow. How has Dr. King's vision influenced your leadership style?
Well, I would say that he's influenced my leadership style by taking one person at a time for who that person is, not judging people by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Um, and I would say that would probably be the biggest concept that he spoke of that I try to live out.
How do these three men collectively shape your moral compass?
Well, man, that's a deep question, man. That's almost. Hey, I probably need some think time or some wait time on that. Man, my moral compass. I don't know. I would have to. I would take a pass on that one. I would need some more time on that one. I'm gonna write that down before I leave, so I can answer that at a later date.
Okay. What lessons from their lives do you bring into your work with students?
Um, Everybody is somebody. This is a quote that I used to use in my high school, one of my high schools where I was principal. Martin Luther King always created environment and from my take of what he was saying, that everybody is somebody and you can be anything that you want to be. And from Muhammad and Malcolm, they had a lot of courage. They had a lot of courage to speak their minds and to stand up for their beliefs, regardless of what other people may have thought of that. And a lot of times you find that people don't have courage because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them.
Mm-hmm. So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement you'd like to leave for our audience? And this would include if you want to tell them how to connect with you via your social media, your websites, any of those great things that you'd like for them to know.
Well, if they want to check out my AI products, they can look at drmj2.com. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up, Dr. Malcolm Jones II. And man, I think the biggest thing that I want to share with anybody is really read and grow your gray brain matter. Smart is something that you can get, and we all need to be working to be the smartest people that we can be.
Well, before closing, I want to thank you for being here and sharing with us, your story and the great work that you're doing in the education realm. Because what we've been lucky to have here on this platform are the really strong, serious-minded Black men that are in the classroom, that are in the education system, that are performing top notch, second to none. And it means so much, not just for this platform, but for our kids and for our communities in general, is because the thing that you said that should resonate most is continuously to read, but taking education serious, because by not taking it serious, it takes a whole lot away from you, and it makes you, I'm not going to say second to none, but it makes you less than. Because once you start to fall under that realm and that spectrum, it's like a downtrodden that a lot of times a lot of people don't realize, don't understand, or don't even know why. But it's because when you have that lack of, as you say, your father told you, if you can't read, you can't do anything. If you
Right.
can't read, you can't comprehend.
That's right. That's right.
And so it's very important that this happens. And so I appreciate you, and I'm definitely looking forward to having you back on the show. But I want to say to those that are out there watching here tonight, I appreciate you for spending this time with us. But if you have not yet, subscribe to the YouTube channels, enabled all notifications, I would appreciate if you would take the time to do that and support us by subscribing and enabling all notifications. In closing, I want to say this. Tonight's conversation reminds us that leadership is not accidental. It is intentional, disciplined, and deeply personal. Dr. Malcolm Jones II stands as proof that when lived experience meets purpose, transformation becomes possible. From the football field to the superintendent's office, from the classroom to the national stage, his journey is a testament to what happens when Black excellence refuses to be confined, underestimated, or ignored. As we close, let's remember this is our children deserve leaders who fight for them with clarity, courage, and conviction, leaders who understand the system because they've lived inside it, leaders who refuse to accept mediocrity when greatness is possible. Dr. Jones is one of those leaders, and tonight he reminded us that the work continues in every school, every district, every community, and every conversation. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for believing in truth. And thank you for standing with us as we continue to tell the stories that matter. This is American Black and White. I'm Charles King, and good night.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.